Welcome to Hanging Out with Robert, that's me. This video contains things that I tinker with throughout the day. For step-by-step detailed instructions of those tasks, you can click on the links in the comment section below. I plan on leaving this video accessible for about 30 days. After that, you can view it through my Patreon account. This video also has tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. So, thank you very much for watching. Here we go, folks. Day 2. Lil Red work. Kicking it off with these parking brakes, and I'm going to bleed that caliper and put the new brake pads on there. You know, I thought that the only brake pads that had a manufacturer defect was aftermarket ones. If you look at this pad here, this shoe that is likely original, you got this notch up here for the top. It comes down, and down here you got this notch. You see how the notch, this piece is not even with that piece. You got to cut in, then it goes up, then it goes over just a little bit and comes back up. Well, these new ones, I thought it was an aftermarket issue, but it's all of them. Those two pieces is even, and it has about a 1/4 inch notch in there, where that notch there is probably 5/8 of an inch. I didn't measure it, I'm guessing. At any rate, these shoes will not fit on the car. It looks like these might have been made in, I don't know, 2009. They may be old stock, but nonetheless, they don't have a deep enough groove there, so when you put them on, they stick out too far. You can't get everything hooked up, and you can't get the drum back on them. I'm gonna go ahead and notch this one out. I got 2 done. I got 1/2 done there. I lay one on top of the other. I draw on it with a Sharpie. I don't think I have to cut this off. I think I just have to go down, file that down. I'm filing it down with this. I guess if you got a metal cutter, that'll be quicker, like a Sawzall or something. You could do it in a couple seconds. This taking me 5 minutes per pad, so 20 minutes I'm losing jacking around with manufacturer defect. Forgot to take my floodlight home to charge it up last night. I charged everything else up. Got 1 light left. Man. So anyway, let me get these brake shoes on, then get these pads on, then bleed this caliper. It appears that my cables are seized. I see a crack and rusted area there at that joint. I set this right here. When I go inside and pull up the parking brake handle, that should move. It does not. When you got that like that, and you pull the cable up, and it doesn't move, you got to replace the cable. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Got that sitting there. Go into the car. Pull the cable. Come back here, and that thing hasn't budged. You got a locked up cable. I'm gonna release it. It should move when I release it. Plus, if you could have a parking brake loose and you pull the handle up, that handle should come all the way up. It shouldn't stop like it did. So I got a cable I need to replace here. I measured the pad cuts I made, filed them in a little bit more, got them in, got the rotor on. So I should be good to go. I'm about to adjust them through that hole there. Hopefully be good to go. That adjuster should be right there. Parking brake's working somewhat. The cable's getting jammed a little bit, so I'm gonna leave it like that for now. Let me go ahead and glue these clips on here so they can be drying, and then I need to put the door latch in, finish putting the door together, then hang this door panel. I got this, man, liquid nail stuff on here. This might be bad for me getting these clips back on here. That one goes there, this one goes here. I think there's another one missing up there I need to find. I'm trying to connect these with this contact cement. I got the contact glue, spread it on the clips. some parts of the panel. I'm going to try to get glued back together, held up by that socket there. Let that stuff dry. Put the latch in, close the door. Man, that thing hit right the first time. It's dirty as all get out, but it hit right. So, clean this up. Get a few more minutes on that door panel stuff. I'm going to put this thing in here that I always forget. This latch is, tip of that thing's broken. I think this one is good. Yeah, this one's good. So I put a zip tie on that. I'm going to zip tie that pull back on and put this inner seal in and keep it moving. Oh man, I forgot to put that cable in there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that in there with the latch in place, but I'm going to give it a try. Here's the cable and handle I got to get in there. Trying to hook that in there is pointless. I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 screws loose after I unplug the wires. Swing this back out and put this thing in right. That wasn't easy getting on out of the door. I'd have never got that thing in there with it in the door. Easier to get the external hooking mechanism over that when these 2 screws are loose about halfway out. So now should be good. And the door opens. Let me hook this up. Screw this in here. Do not over tighten these. These strip real easy. And check on my door panel. You really don't want to over tighten these. You want to use a screwdriver in your hand. But I have stripped several of these out. So do not use a ratchet on them. Do not use a power tool on them. This metal is thin and it strips right out of this metal. So that's all I'm doing with that. Let me find this little panel here, and guess I could make sure this works. Pull this and it opens. Good to go. Straighten these pull pins up before you put them in. I don't know why so many of them are bent. I see them bent sticking out of the doors all the time. So get that thing straightened up so it sits straight coming out of your door panel. And let me zip tie this one on here because the handle latch is broke. I guess this thing goes like this. Fits in there pretty good. Door pull still goes up and down. Got that in. I got the 2 wire harnesses on the back of the latch plugged in. These are tight. I got to put that cover over there. Even though one of the tabs broke, these things are impossible to get off without breaking. Let's see if that stays on there. Probably won't. Nope, I could glue that on if I want or find another one. Now I'm going to get the door panel after I put this seal on. So let me get this seal, put this on, then put the door panel. Door panel hangs on the seal. I think everything works. I'm going to test it before I snap the door panel in place. I set the seal in place and push it down real good. Now the door panel hooks in it, and the felt, of course, is on your tent. I got to make sure I got these mirror screws in. I think they're tight. Make sure this gasket is in here right. Then I can go ahead and plug this door panel in, test it, and latch it on. Kind of hard to test without the battery hooked up, so I'll hook up the battery so I can do that. Now that I'm ready to put the door panel on, I had that contact glue on there, and I pressed those in place. You can see how strong those are. Lift the whole door panel up by these things. That contact glue is strong. I put some on a few other spots on the door panel to get the door panel fixed in here. Hopefully those other parts will stay as well. So let me go plug this in, make sure it works, and secure it. Door panel is on, nice and tight. I had to put that cap in there. Try to find that carpet, put some contact glue on that, and glue that back on. Since I don't believe in booting aftermarket or rebuilt axles, I got some Volvo axles here that I took out of a manual. That tone ring is almost shot on that one. Gotta be careful with dealing with stuff like that, because if those start chipping off, you're done. They get an ABS light. But I'm gonna put this one on the passenger side. The boots are fine. Probably put that one on the driver's side if that driver's side is not OEM Volvo axle. If it is, I'm gonna boot it. But let me check my delivery, see if my brake pads came in, because I was gonna put some Akibono ceramic pads on this car. Couple different ways to get this pinstripe off. The way that I most commonly use is a plastic razor, but you can heat it up and scrape them off after you heat them up, which is better with a heat gun. And then you can use solvent to try to get any glue that's left on, and then use cleanser wax or a buffer to blend in the color from under the line to make the rest of it pop again, and then wax it, of course, after you've stripped it down. But this door has no dents. Whenever you're dealing with these doors, you want to check these rubber seals here. Make sure they're nice and smooth and flat. If you see some bumpy areas in there, that means that that seal is rusted in there, and you need to replace those, because you don't want that rust transferring onto the body of the car, and you don't want the seal going bad. So this one looks fine, just needs to be cleaned up and dressed. I'm going to install the axle in here. So what I'm going to do is wipe off the end of the axle, make sure it's dirt and lint free, get under the car, plug it in, hook up the carrier bearing, swing this knuckle assembly out, and put the bolt on there, snug it down. I'll torque it when I get the car on the ground. So let me go ahead, wipe the end of the axle off, put it in place, and get some traction on it. Before I plug the axle into the hub, I put grease on the spline. I don't want a bunch of grease on the threads, so I didn't grease that up. I put it on the spline, so now I'm gonna pull this out, plug that in. I already got the courier bolts in, they need to be tightened, but I'm gonna plug this in first. Got it in, got the nut started. Of course, it's a good time to check your bushings on your control arms. Those look good. Now I'm gonna plug the control arms in and torque everything down. I use that floor jack to load this control arm. I put it under the ball joint, jacked it up until it lifted the car up off of the jack stand. Then I tightened the subframe bolts down. I'm gonna go ahead and run an errand, take a lunch break, come back and maybe have my pads in the mail by then, finish this up, get this car out of here, hopefully by 5. Thanks for bringing my package. Just set it right there in the water, that'd be fine. I'm back. Time to put these Akibono pads on, boy, and bleed this stuff so I can move on. Usually brake pads come with a little lube. These did not. I got these Volvo anti-squeal shims here. I just set them on the ground, brush them off with the wire brush. On these cars, when you hear brake squeal, it's usually the back. I always reuse these. Only time I've ever installed new ones is when people bought new ones. I grease those. Only time I replace these is when they're broken. This one looked like it's on this last leg. The rivet's loose. Brush those off, reuse those. And the other anti-squeal pad is here. So it has an arrow on them, which way they should go in. Wheel rotation that way, they should go in that way. So I'm gonna brush that out, spray it down with brake parts cleaner, collapse that caliper, do the same thing, grease that, grease the back of the pans, grease both sides of the shim, grease these, grease the pins, put that stuff in there, should be good to go. Always lube these parts. I got this stuff, I've had this, man, probably 6 years or better. I'm gonna go ahead and use that to lubricate my parts. Here we go. Testing the brake fluid, man. I can't remember if I've ever redone the brake fluid in this thing or not. Ooh, it's nasty and low. Let me get a rag. Alright, here we go. Tester. Huh. Not that bad. It's only got one red, but I'm gonna go ahead and flush it. Can't find my turkey baster, so I'm going to siphon this stuff out of here. This thing must have had a top off because I'm siphoning some out, and I got down in there and tested the stuff down in here, and it popped all the way red. This stuff is nasty. Anyway, we about to put some fresh stuff in there. Couldn't find my turkey baster, so I siphoned this stuff out. Yeah. Now I'm gonna start off with some fresh fluid and push the rest of this stuff out of here. Let me lift this up so you can see how bad it is. This bottle, that stuff is near black. Man, I don't know why the stuff coming out of the caliper don't look half as bad as the stuff that came out of the reservoir. That's kind of crazy. But I see the dirt flowing out. So I'm gonna keep it going. See if it'll get clear, or like it started to come out clear through the tube, so I shut it down. So I had half a bottle from up in the reservoir, and then I got a half a bottle bleeding back here. Now I'm gonna go to the next one. Now I'm bleeding the right front, and I started with an empty bottle, so we'll see how much this takes before it starts coming out clear. Last but not least, the left front. Still got 10 psi in the bottle. Got a little bit of fluid left. And it's coming out. Still yellow. When it starts looking white, we'll close it off. I'm still pumping clear brake fluid into the system. Still coming out here yellow. Nice and slow. Still got 10 psi on that thing. It's starting to get clear. I'll let it run a few more seconds, and then we'll be done. So I guess you fill up 2 of these bottles. Fill up a half bottle from the reservoir, half a bottle right rear, almost a half a bottle left rear, then a quarter of a bottle left front. Then we're done. Yep, it's coming out clear now. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do these rear brake pads on the Volvo cars. Man, this is like 240, 740, maybe 760s. All of them have these calipers here. They look like that. They all have the same pads. So you want to jack the car up, put on the jack stand. While the car is on the ground, you want to break the lug nuts loose. You want to jack the car up by the jacking point, put a jack stand under it, lower the car onto the jack stand, remove the lug nuts, take the wheel off. Now you'll have access to the caliper. Next thing you're going to do is get something to drive these pins out of the caliper. The tip of them are there. You got one there, one there. You drive those 2 pins out with a punch or something, and when you pull them out, this little metal thing will fall down to the ground. Probably best to use a punch, an old flat tip screwdriver. Don't hit the handle too hard. You don't want to bust the handle. Something like this, put on there, tap the end. You want to tap those in as far as you can. Once you got those tapped in as far as you can, they'll be sticking out the back a little bit. Grab them with a needle nose pliers or something. Wire cutters, you can use all kind of stuff to get those to pull the rest of the way out. But pull those out. Once you get them out, you'll be able to slide the pads out. Do 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 do. You see how far they're out now? Just pull one of them out. Sometimes you could push the top of the spring here with a screwdriver while you pull this out. It'll come out easier. That's what I did with one hand. I used a tool to push that in, then I pulled the thing out. Now this will be loose. That'll come out easy. Now you can get a screwdriver or something and pull these brake pads out like this. Pull them out with a screwdriver, pair of pliers, anything. They just slide right out. They're supposed to have these shim pads here. These are anti-squeal pads. So just work these back and forth. Get these out. Now if you want, you can pry a little bit on the pad to spread the calipers. So now the caliper piston, these are two pistons, one on each side. I don't know why that's so hard to come out of there. Normally they come out a lot easier. Must be some kind of rust buildup or something in there. Alright, got one out. I'm going to don't do that too much because you don't want to warp the rotor. And then get these out. These pads are not as bad as the pads were on the other side. The other side, the brake pads are really bad. Alright, so you want to brush in there with wire brush top and bottom. You want to push the pistons the rest of the way in, make sure they work. And after you get that cleaned up and brushed out, you lube the shim pad, put it back in, and you lube the back of the brake pads. Lube this area down here where this, you see this rust build up at top and bottom. And you grease the pins. And I normally clean the pins off with a wire brush, clean these shims off with a wire brush, and lube the back part of the pad. For some reason, these pads are not bad. The other side was gone. Okay, that one's pretty worn out. Alright, so these brake pads were worn out. I don't know what kind of pads these were, but they don't look like Akibonos, because Akibonos have a piece of this material here comes up over the back. I'm going to brush it off, see if I can tell, but they may be. If you use ceramic pads, you normally don't get any wear on your rotor. This rotor has basically no wear at all. Always try to use ceramic pads. That's all I got time for today. Supposed to go have dinner with my family. So tomorrow I'm gonna pull that caliper off, pull that rotor off, make sure those parking brakes are good. Then I'm gonna change the shoes on the parking brake, put all this stuff back together, and change that CV axle up there, and I should be done. Minus a little cleanup, this door, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and shut down this shop. Try to get out here earlier tomorrow. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.